The old man had been treading couch grass in the field since dawn, halting now and then to hack a nettle stalk with his dull scythe. Sometimes he'd inspect the heads of flowering weeds and peer back, agonized towards the house, as though he'd sighted a pernicious species long presumed extinct. Arthur Mayhood watched him from the steps of his back porch. It was the sort of clear, bright morning that made him recognize how close he was to happiness, a wholesome sunlight over Ockham that seemed as thick as tallow, and the verdancy of every acre in his view like something rendered for a postcard. If he looked far enough into the distance, he could forget the dire state of his farm and feel good about himself again, remember what it was that brought him out here in the first place. There was so much to do at Leventree that he'd not anticipated. It had been less than a year, all told, and the house was in good order, but trying to restore the land had broken him, one fruitless day after another. A stubborn part of him used to believe he was invulnerable to the drudge of manual labour. For as long as he still had the use of one good arm, he could manage twice the work of anyone. Well, that streak in him was gone now, too. Lately he'd resolved to take whatever crumb of help or wisdom anyone could throw at him. The old man was a case in point. His name was Hollis, and he'd shown up in the yard at 6 a.m. as promised, wearing a large straw sun hat on a string across his back. A glower had set upon his face as he'd considered the condition of the fields a moment, but his feelings had remained unspoken. In the dawn light he'd seemed thinner than he had the day before, his complexion rough as grout. He'd said he wouldn't mind a cup of tea himself before they made a start on things. "Seeing as you've got one on the go already." So they'd stepped into the kitchen, eyeing one another for as long as it had taken to drink up. There'd been some discussion of the lovely weather they'd been having, but the topic had run dry.
Hollis had glanced up towards the ceiling. "Mrs. Mayhood a late riser, is she?"
"Not usually," Arthur had replied. "Thought I'd say hello while I was here. She's gone to town to fetch a part. How loud's your voice?" The old man had snickered. "Saw your tractor out there in the garage. If it were a horse, I'd shoot it. Wish I had the luxury. What's the part she's after?" "Damned if I know." "Just to Leatherhead she's gone?" "Yes." "Could have put it in the post for you. I think she wants to barter down the price." "Well, good for her." This had been as much of an exchange as could be wrung from the old man. There was a dourness to him that seemed reflexive, born of wretched luck in days gone by. Civility and candour were the best assurances for men like Hollis. It had been the same with lads in Borstal and a fair few of the sergeants in his company, while others favoured toadying and politicking. In Arthur's view, a bit of gruffness in a fellow was a sign he wanted to be taken seriously. As they'd gone out to the yard together, he'd suggested that the windbreak was the place to start. "I think it might be causing us more problems than it's helping." The old man had nodded. "If you say so." They'd moved off together, heading for the bank of ash trees at the far side of the meadow, but then Hollis had stopped walking. "There are two ways we can go about this. Either I can tell you what you want to hear, or I can tell you what I really think. Which one suits you best?" "The truth is all I need for now." "Then stay put here. I'll have a wander on my own." There was a time, barely a week ago, when Arthur might have been embarrassed to expose the dearth of progress he had made at Leventree. He didn't like to advertise his limitations, even if he could admit to them. But replenishing the grounds of this old place, just making the land functional again, was going to take more than his reserves of industry and patience. It required native wisdom. Men like Hollis had a vast resource of local knowledge and experience to draw from, inherited from their fathers and grandfathers. It was in their bones and blood. They could gauge the character of a soil by sight and feel, but Arthur had no instinct for this type of work. He'd learned the rudiments from books and tried to put the complicated business into practice. He'd scrutinized the survey map 100 times, inserted augers to determine depth, variety, but ask him the condition of his soil today, the very thing upon which Leventree relied, and he couldn't give an answer.